Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, it's time to have a look at some answers from the developers, once again from Vyacheslav Lenikov, who is of course BVVD. He's a frequenter on the mainstreams of War Thunder, and also is a person who normally does these dev Q&As. So it's nice to see that we get another one just before the Christmas period. It's been kind of amazing, actually, when it comes to War Thunder and 2020. We already know about a ton of tech trees that are going to be coming, such as the Italian naval stuff, the Swedish ground, also some helicopter trees on top of it. The amount of information we have going into the future, I think, is more than we've ever had in War Thunder, and the way that we're getting that information is through these dev Q&As, and also just through general statements that are made by, Gaijin staff members, and this is a great thing. More information is power for people to plan ahead, and also look forward to stuff, and, hopefully get some more conversations going, and get the community generally talking about stuff. So for me, even though, you have a Q&A here which does have some repeat questions from before, and also some which I would definitely class as trivial, at the end of the day, it's still good as conversation starters. So it's split up into ground, air, helicopters, and navy. So we'll start off with the ground stuff, and then, look forward. The main portion of this Q&A is definitely pushed around naval forces, but that one seems to be the part of the game which is having a lot thrown into it to try and make it a relevant game mode. So ground, the first question is, could the IPM-1 be folded with the M1 Abrams so you don't have to unlock a marginally different tank to get to the M1A1? The answer is maybe in the future. And the fact is, it's never about if a tank is marginal or not if it gets folded. The reason to folder a vehicle is only for research purposes. So the only time that the IPM-1 and the M1 are going to get folded is when Gaijin decides that there is enough stuff after it, which, it would make sense to folder them. This is what happens with stuff like the MBT-70, the XM803. This is what happens with Panzers. This is what happens with any vehicle in the game. It's nothing to do with the fact that they are close to each other. It is just down to, does Gaijin think that you shouldn't have to go through these vehicles to research the next one? And that normally comes down to, either a monetary decision or a, just a general decision of, is this tank, surplus to a lineup that you could have? Is it just kind of an extra thing instead of a necessary thing? So yeah, when that decision is made, I'm sure it will be folded, and that decision I'm sure will be made when you get more Abrams tanks, so which is just, I'm sure a lot of people would be happy with that. The next one is, can you tell us if you are close to a Japanese SAM? Right now, they remain the only nation without one, which puts them at a disadvantage. Yes, we are working on such vehicles. So we know that they are working on such vehicles. The fact is, the Japanese SAMs, if you actually have a look at them, in general, when it comes to what they actually have and what they actually use, they're incredibly limited. So the problem is you have, first of all, the Type 93, and I'll just bring up a picture for you on screen right now. So this is the Type 93 that you can see, hopefully, and the interesting thing about this one is this is mounted on a Kuki Dosha that you can see here, and it has 8 missiles available to it. So the Type 93 is actually the SAM system itself. Now the problem with this SAM system is it only has a range of 5 kilometers. And also, they are just completely anti-air missiles. So this would be worse than something like the Stormer in the game. Now, I think the Stormer actually has a really high, what would you call it? It has a really high... I can't remember the word. It has a really high skill, player skill threat. Oh, god damn it. It has a really high skill ceiling for a player, but it also has a really low really high barrier to entry. So something like the Stormer, even though, most of the time it's not going to be very good, I do think it has one of the highest usefulnesses in game if it's used correctly for an anti-air. The problem is, once again, its range right now, which is artificially limited. So the fact is, if you bring something like this in, which only has a 5-kilometer range, we already have vehicles such as the KA-50, which would outrange it by a factor of 2. So how do you deal with those vehicles? And also, that's not even including doing the ground game, which would even be even worse. Then you have machines like this. Now, this, if you don't know, is the TANSAM. This is 4 missiles, and once again, it is generally an air-to-air vehicle. But the problem is that there are other systems as well which are similar to this, such as the Type 11 or Type 73 armored truck, which I'll show you right here. All of these systems are what I like to call them parent and child systems, but I know they have a proper name. I just can't remember what it is. But the system, you need a receiver to the system itself, meaning that you need something which can give you a signal to kind of bounce towards. So you have this, which is solely, the purpose of it is designed to fire the missile, and then you have another truck which is designed to actually have the radar component to track whatever it is shooting the missile at. So it's not all encompassed in one single truck. It's encompassed in 2 trucks, right? So therefore, you would have to have both trucks in game. You would have to somehow control both of them at the same time, or you have to artificially put the use of 2 trucks into one of them, which is, the other thing that you could do. So, once again, these things struggle from not being multi-purpose machines, and the ones which do really well right now, such as the ADATs and also the automatic, also, I suppose, the Mistral if you want to throw it in there, but the Tunguska is another shout. These are all multi-purpose anti-tank / anti-air machines, whereas stuff like the Florak and the Roland definitely struggle. So the thing is, why would you want to take these over pre-existing vehicles and just kind of chance your luck? Because there is more chance you're going to see ground vehicles than you are air vehicles. There are options, as you can see, for Japan, but none of them really fit, and that is a problem. So my feelings is they're working on such vehicles. It's taking really long because the options are limited, and I've got a feeling that what's going to happen is they're going to go a little bit further afield, such as just plonking in a different nation's, idea into it, because maybe Japan tested something. Are there any plans to customize camos, wooden logs, camo nets, camouflage barrels, maybe? The answer is sounds interesting, but pretty hard to implement since we don't have a system that would suit us in terms of quality and effort needed. We might have such a system in the future, though. It would be really nice to have more customization for vehicles in general. The main thing that we've seen in tanks is the ability to add bushes, decorations, decals and stuff, which has been absolutely wonderful. But on the naval and the plane fronts, there has really been no change at all from when the same system which was there 6 years ago, especially for planes. And all you can really do is just add decals and use user skins or create user skins. It would be nice to see more in-depth go into the customization of War Thunder. That is how we see a lot of free-to-play games going, where it is much more about the customization, and that's how a lot of games make their money. Path of Exile, World of Tanks also has a very large component to it, which is about that. A lot of MMOs also are about, customization and how you look. Warframe is another one. So yeah, it would be nice to see systems like that implemented, and as long as they don't affect gameplay too much, it should be okay. The next question is, good day. Is it possible in RB to keep burned tanks on the battlefield? And the answer is, in a multi-respawn game, destroyed carcasses might cause different problems. For example, driving through. At the moment, we keep burnt carcasses of tanks for players unable to respawn in the match. So he's completely right that it does cause additional problems. So I've been having thoughts about this, and it harks back to a video that I believe it was either Circon or Jingles uploaded a long time ago. And this will have been years ago. And one of them did a TOG platoon in World of Tanks. And what they did was there was a map which had a bridge on it. So what they did is they lined up on the bridge and they just sat there in a line and completely blocked off that side of the bridge. And you couldn't get past it, so there was no flanking maneuvers, and what this meant was even though they died, the enemy was still stuck going down one path, so their team could just blast them as they came into the path. And this is something that has to be thought about in War Thunder. There is going to be a lot of situations, because not every map is, a huge expansive one. If anything, at least in the time that I've been playing over the last month, it seems like because of the map rotation filter, people are mainly liking smaller maps overall. So on stuff like Advance to the Rhine, all it would take is 2 heavy tanks down, certain areas such as the 10 line, and it would make it hard to actually get past them, either in an aggressive capacity or try and hold from a defensive capacity, depending on where those vehicles are. And all you need is a 2 or 3 vehicle pileup, and then you can easily just block off a way to go. And then once that's done, then as long as you have the weight of the machines, it's going to be impossible to go that way, and then you can filter the enemy down one side. So it definitely gets rid of options from a gameplay point of view, and also it really does limit a lot of the playstyles which you would generally be interested to play in War Thunder. So for me, I agree with the system that we have right now. I think it's also good just from a general knowledge point of view. Like if you kill a tank and then that tank disappears, straight away or within 10 seconds, either that person has left the match or they have respawned in another vehicle. Now, normally, depending on where the match is, they're going to have respawned in another vehicle. So it's going to be really easy to work out if they're coming at you again, whether it's in a plane or whether it's in a tank. So you can try and work around that. And I kind of like that. It's a little bit of extra thought that goes into playing War Thunder, which I'm always a fan of. The air portion of this Q&A is quite small, and it's just 2 questions. With aircraft providing an increasingly more active role in naval forces, particularly Naval EC, is it possible that we will see some more float planes? Some nations are without any in their standard tree, and there are famous examples of Italian and German aircraft like the AR-196 that could be added. And the answer is yes. We agree that in naval battles, seaplanes have their niche. We plan to add similar vehicles in the future too. And it's true, one of the things that has been nice to see is the Kingfisher coming back in quite a large way after being taken out of the game because it was seen as useless, which, well, it was and still kind of is, but at least now it has some sort of use in the fact that it can and will cap stuff such as points. If you want to know what the AR-196 is, this is it. It is a float plane from Germany, and you can see here it's in a recon configuration, and it's being launched off the side of what probably is a light cruiser, maybe a destroyer. It's probably a light cruiser, I don't know. But the main thing is that it has, 2 1792s and also 220 millimeters in the A2 version, and 250 kilo bombs, so it's not completely useless when it comes to defending itself. There's also some other options from Germany which I think are much more interesting. So the first one's the Bf-109T. Now this was a Bf-109 that was specifically made for naval use. It never got used for naval use because, well, they never finished their aircraft carrier. Instead, it was just used alongside of the Bf-109s, but you can see the main differences between this and a standard Bf-109 is the tail hook that you have in the back there, and also the wings could be retracted, so they could be put upwards, which is very standard, for a lot of naval vehicles. The other one is the Ju-87C. Now, this was supposed to be the Ju-87 torpedo bomber. This was going to be once again used on the German aircraft carrier, which was never finished. Once again, it never really got past any crazy stages, but you can see here it has the folded wings. And also, it would have had a tail hook and, of course, the torpedo. So there are a lot of options when it comes to this stuff. And hopefully, in the next few years, we see them added. Naval Forces, for me, when it comes to lower tiers, is incredibly fun. There is, a little bit of a problem when it comes to aircraft versus naval vehicles. I don't think they really mesh too well right now. But the fact that you can cap points in airplanes is really cool. I like the fact that, it isn't just about whoever is just the mightiest. There can be different ways to play these vehicles, which can be, kind of useful. And just seeing more naval vehicles in the game, I think, is only a positive. There is definitely a discussion to be had, though, because there's going to be a few naval vehicles added, I'm sure, which will only be useful in naval game modes. So at the end of the day, do we limit those vehicles just in naval game mode, or do we let people bring them into ground realistic or air realistic, where they're just going to be burdens on, the allied team that they're playing for? For me, I don't think they should be limited, but it is definitely a idea or a question to ask. It was mentioned that the implementation of modern aviation in the game is limited by secrecy of their flight. Oh, here we go. Secrecy of their flight performance, characteristics, and systems. Where is the border for it? Third generation, fourth, or fourth plus? We would like to know what the limitation is. It is difficult to say because time goes on. All right. Documents that were closed and are declassified, and more information gets into free access, so the limitation is gradually shifting. Simply, we can say that the aviation of third and partially fourth generation may well be added to the game, perhaps even newer vehicles. They will be added, and it doesn't matter about information. It hasn't for a few years now. That argument has pretty much gone out the window. Because of the fact that you can see in other parts of the game, such as ground vehicles, that has just been gone. There is no reason to make that argument anymore, because Gaijin themselves haven't been making that argument. They have basically just said it doesn't really matter when it comes to general information. Guesstimation is the way forward, and I'll tell you exactly when this started happening, because it's very easy to actually show when this started happening. And it was something I talked about at the time, and you can see it right in front of you. Update 1.77. So Update 1.77 was introduced on the 4th of March 2018. Now, this was, a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago, and it was obviously decided before this time, but this was the update that, changed at least the public mindset when it came to vehicles, and the reason for it is the M1 Abrams was added and the Challenger was added. Now, I know a lot of people are going to argue, oh, these vehicles aren't classified, they're not fully classified, they have parts of them which we know about, blah, blah, blah. The fact is, these are classified vehicles. They have information which is integral to their being, which is classified. Therefore, because there is even a smidgen of information which is still classified about these vehicles, Gaijin has to guesstimate specific values about them. Now, what we've seen from this point onwards, we've seen additions such as the Leopard 2A4, the 2A5, the M1A2, the Challenger 2, which is a fully classified vehicle, may I just say, the Challenger 2, the Type 90, the Ariete series of vehicles, the Leclerc, even the Type 16, a 2016 vehicle. Now, everything that we've seen over the last year or so in ground forces has pushed us towards modern vehicles. We're basically, for MBTs, in the mid-90s right now, maybe a little bit earlier, but the thing is, they're all classified in their own certain ways. There is no reason why we can't take this logic and go, it's going to happen with planes too. So this idea that we don't have the information for these vehicles, that argument went out the window a long time ago, because nobody fought it a long time ago, because people were more interested in these modern vehicles, which is why, for me, I've said many times, I'm not interested in top tier because it's a fantasy land, and planes will eventually get there too. We're already seeing it with certain vehicles where it's just becoming insane, especially with their weaponry options, which, some of them are going into classified territory. So for me, it's just one of those facts, when we look at stuff like Operation Hotwire, which is part of the, it's kind of the community's way of being able to pick and choose what they want to pass the developers in December. It's actually been run really well on the War Thunder forums, and it's in its final week now if you want to check it out. But the main thing that I've been seeing from that is people want really modern vehicles. They want stuff like the upgraded Challenger 2s. They want stuff such as the Panavia Tornado. They want stuff like the Tomcat. So we're going into that area, and there's nothing that can stop it. It's going to happen because it isn't just Gaijin who want it. It will bring in new players, it will bring in, a bunch of money, and it'll bring in people who want to gold their way to top tier, and it just is how it is. Now, am I happy about this? No. I generally think it's not good for the game in the long run, but in the short term, it's great for it, so it doesn't matter. Everything will be completely fine, I'm sure. And there will be no complaining, such as the complaining I've heard the last 2 years in this game about, oh, well, this isn't what I expected it to be, or this document says this, or that document says that. It's just been an absolute pain to deal with, especially when it comes to these top-tier tanks, and it's going to be exactly the same when it comes to these top-tier air vehicles, and I'm not looking forward to it. The next part is helicopters. So the first question is it possible we could see a PvE mode for helicopters, a cooperative, objective-based mode with reasonable rewards, maybe a good solution for the low-rank helicopters who can't counter higher-ranked ones in Helicopter EC. It would also provide an opportunity to explore more interesting and specific gameplay for helicopters, such as naval targets. The answer is recently we have added the ability to use helicopters in the tank mission, assault mission, so it's possible to research them there as well. Well done on not answering the question at all. This is not an answer to what he said. This is like saying, I'm selling apples over here, so... No, that's a terrible analogy. The analogy is, so what does an apple taste like? Well, a pear is like this, and it's like, well, no, what does an apple taste like? Well, an orange tastes like this, and it's like, okay, cool, like, whatever. So, the interesting thing about PvE modes, and I actually saw this in Simulator, which is an odd thing to say, but PvE game modes, in general, are a interesting trap. So, what we've seen from other games, advanced, oh my god, what's it called? I'll find it. But what we've seen from other games is when PvE game modes have been added in, such as in the, how can I not remember its name? Let's see. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyins Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trashcan for supporting the channel.